The times, they are a-changing in Syria.
There's a new indie poll out this week.
Farage has got his own show, formerly called Question Time.
Attempted coup in South Korea.
And Trump is attempting to rip up the US Constitution.
All that and more. Stay tuned.
Good evening, fine folk, and welcome to the 31st episode of the Recce Report. I am former British Army Corporal Cliff Purvis.
And I am former British Army Warrant Officer Russ. It's good to be here once again, Cliff.
It is, and it's also our end of year show.
It is. A happy Christmas, everyone. If we clearly won't see you before then. So this is our final 2024 last hurrah.
Yeah. And I think, to be brutally honest, Russ, it's been a bit of a bruising year for the independence campaign.
It has, mate. And if we would take a minute just to reflect on where we started the year and where we are now, I don't think anyone envisaged this is where we'd be sitting today. Yeah. Good time for reflection, but like every good soldier, we don't fight the last battle. We try and fight the next one. So it's onwards and upwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So as was mentioned, we do actually have a script for these shows, folks. Whether or not we stick to them is obviously it depends how we delve into the conversation. So obviously the big news today. This week is just how quickly the rancid regime of Syria collapsed when it was actually pushed. Now, Russia turned out to be a bit of a paper tiger over there. They have two bases, a maritime base and an air base, and they can provide support for Assad. And I've heard reports that the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq refused to cross over to give Assad any support as well. And obviously Hezbollah is caught up with their little fracas with Israel and Lebanon at the moment. So it really does, I think, show that if pushed, these dictatorships do crumble, but it's another dictatorship in the Middle East crumbling, and what's going to come out of it?
I think you're right, Cliff, and people assume that that these sort of things are limited to the Middle East or the developing nations, but the truth is, it's democracy or the way of life that we enjoy is always on a knife edge. We've seen it so many times. Just that spark in the tinderbox that just set people off. And don't never get complacent. And it shows you how things can change, and they can change rapidly as long as there's a will and an impetus to do it. Because no one knew this was coming. None of the intelligence agencies in the world were like, yeah, Syria's on its way out.
I'll be watching the Syrians that are living in exile, commenting on various news channels, and they are certainly being caught out with this, the speed of it. And that's also a good gauge that, maybe the intelligence agencies were caught napping on this one.
Honestly, billions of pounds, billions of dollars on drone technology, surveillance, double agents, backhanders, and no one's seen it coming.
Yeah.
Or no one's admitting to have seen it coming anyway.
Yeah.
But I caught everyone on the back foot, especially the Russians.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Putin has promised severe consequences if the new Syrian government. It's time to stop calling them rebels.
Yeah,
they are the government.
I mean, of course, you got to believe Putin. I mean, because he doesn't have to worry about Ukraine or anything. He can divert all his attention to Syria now, can't he?
Yes, absolutely. Now that he's got those extraordinarily fit and healthy North Korean soldiers that are, by all accounts, undeployable. Folks, things can happen on the political front very, very quickly. We know the Middle East is a mess, mainly thanks to what happened at the end of the First World War, when the UK and France decided to carve up for their own interests what was then the Ottoman Empire, what was left of the Ottoman Empire. And yes, it was all to do with oil. Just at that stage, we had converted our fleet from coal burning to oil, and the oil fields around, I think it was Aleppo was one of the first ones, came on tap, and we needed to get that oil to the Mediterranean ports, and that's why we ended up going, and we're going to look after Palestine.
Yeah, and interestingly, you mentioned oil, mate. I read somewhere earlier that there's three unfinished pipelines currently in Syria that Assad refused to finish, so that we'd be more reliant on Russian oil. So there's actually pipelines here to coming through Turkey and places like that.
Yeah,
that will go down through Syria and then out and then over to Europe.
Well, you got to think that the new government, and I noticed that the new government flag is flying in the embassy in Moscow.
Yeah.
The new government then will open up those pipelines because they'll want finance of their own.
The lovely, welcoming, always ready to negotiate ISIS government. Is that what you're talking about, mate?
Yeah, it's going to be. This is going to be a very tricky one for the West, because the leader of the new government is trying his best to get to rewrite history, not rewrite history, but forget about his past. Let's face it, he's never said he was never part of Al Qaeda or ISIS, backed ISIS in any way.
Even though he was on the FBI's most wanted list with a $10 million reward for his capture.
Yeah, so it's going to be if he turns around and goes anti-Putin, then the Americans will quite happily forget about him. Forget about his past.
Of course they will. You don't have to look at how they suck up to the Saudis, mate.
Yeah,
and their atrocious human rights record to see that that it doesn't matter what you do in the past. As soon as you've got your fingers in the pie and you control the oil and the money, then people bend over backwards to you. And Evelyn made a point here when I talked about how quickly things can happen. She's saying, let us hope they're caught napping on independence then. And that's the point I was getting to. Things can change rapidly. And people like to pretend that it can't. And it brings us on to, the independence poll that came out this week.
What an absolutely stunning result that is. 54% in favour of independence.
Yeah.
Considering the bruising we've had, considering that we still only have one national news outlet in Scotland that is in any way friendly to independence. For that to happen, 54% is a good one. And but the trouble is, we've got to replicate it. We've got to replicate that every month for it to become relevant to Westminster. Going off the result of the poll, it would give John Sweeney and the SNP something like 59 seats, which is outstanding considering they've been in government since 2007. The thing we have to be wary about, it also give the Reform Party 13. So this is where I start. We have got, a year and a bit before the polls open. We have to now start thinking, if we don't vote in the Scottish parliamentary elections, those that prefer the hard right, the Reform Party, will eat into that, because we are now getting incredibly polarised.
I think the issue you have there, though, mate, is that, my opinion is that reform, they're not a threat to the independence parties. They're just going to take Tory seats, But what it does, though, is because we have a form of PR at Holyrood, is it gives them a voice. And we're seeing that now. You made the comment at the start. Farage has got his new show. Yeah, they're going to rename Question Time the Farage Hour, aren't they? 38 times he's been he's been platformed by the BBC on that programme now.
Yeah.
And you see it now, they're still doing it. They've got, what, like 5 MPs, and they're wheeled out, they're asked their opinion on stuff. Think back to when the SNP had but 6 MPs in Westminster. You've barely seen a sight of them on any of the news channels.
Yeah.
They're bending over backwards to create the headlines for them.
Of course.
Farage says something, Lee Anderson says something, it's all over the papers. As legitimate, as a legitimate question. Why aren't the paper just saying to these people, I'm not going to swear, I was about to, just F off. You know what I mean? You're going to get a small percentage of the vote. People are not going to defect in any great measure to you. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it annoys me, I think, because they try and pretend these, the BBC especially, that they're fair and balanced. And to be fair to them, the programming tends to be generally balanced. But the current affairs stuff is heavily leaning towards the right, mate.
Oh, it's weighted. They can say they have representation from all parties throughout it. Yeah. So why on earth has Nigel Farage been on it 38 times? Is he a one-person party?
Yeah, they said, someone said he's an elected MP. Well, he's not the only one. There's 650 of the buggers in that parliament.
Yeah. Just to clarify this, we have got 513 days, 10 hours, and 47 minutes approximately until the polls open.
But you're not counting.
I'm not counting. Right, never mind Christmas, never mind New Year. We have to now be aiming for this Scottish Parliament elections.
We need to get out there. And the encouraging thing is, mate, if after the general election, when the SNP got a bit of a pumping, because, it's become more apparent now that was a Tory protest vote more than it was a rejection of the SNP. I feel.
I heard that, I think probably from yourself when it first happened, and I was a bit sceptical on that, but I'm leaning towards that myself now, considering that John Sweeney has come out and he's given his 4 priorities for the next year in government. Eradicating child poverty, growing the economy, tackling climate change, and ensuring high quality and sustainable public services. That tied in with the first budget. And remember, our budget is heavily dependent on what comes out of Westminster. Because any cuts from then is reflected in what we get, as pocket money. And I'm calling it that because that's exactly what it is. So the budget seems to have worked with the voters. This protest vote does not seem to have carried over to the Scottish elections, which is great. But we've still got to work at it. Each and every single supporter of independence, we've got to carry on, folks. And I know I've had a pretty down year regarding my own feelings towards how independence is going. I mean, started off, I cannot see it happening in my lifetime. Yeah. Well, maybe I was just a bit doer. A bit too negative on that one. And maybe it is time to pick ourselves up. As the squaddies we once were, young Russ. Dust ourselves, pick up our gear and go forward again.
Absolutely, mate. It's and maybe it won't. I'm hoping it does, but maybe it won't happen in our lifetime. But there was a quote that I'm about to butcher, which is, progress happens when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit under. And by that I mean, okay, it may not happen for me, but I can certainly lay the groundwork. We can lay the groundwork for this to benefit our kids, our grandkids, our great grandkids. That's the legacy we hope for.
That's what we can do. We keep chipping away. We do what we do, Russ, with our little thing. Other people do what they do, and as Kevin, the maestro, is always telling us, little organisations join together. Suddenly you got a big organisation.
Kevin's relentless, isn't he? I'm sure the guy doesn't sleep. For those who don't know, Kevin's the driving force behind Independence Live, that hosts all these things. And if you've ever seen a live stream for Independence event, that's most likely Kevin or one of the others behind the camera pushing that out. And he's constantly, he absolutely is a driving force behind a lot of what we do.
Yes.
When we start lagging behind, he's the one at the back of the run in the orange vest, telling you to get up, keep up, kicking your bum, getting you going. I'm gonna get my PTI vest, mate, because he's just the beast master, isn't he?
Oh, he is an absolute beast man, and a nicer man you couldn't hope to meet. Right, so we've had the top line of one regime in Syria,
Yeah,
and an attempted top line of another regime in South Korea.
I still don't even know what happened. All I know is that the president, prime minister, whatever it is, just declared martial law out of nowhere, and I don't even know what the reasoning was. There was people on social media who are like South Korean sort of expats who were like, we have no idea what's happening.
I mean, he started to blame North Korean meddling and the interference from the north and stuff like that. And everybody's just sitting there giving it, hey, when did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of meddling, and I know we didn't mention at the start, but what about Romania? Romania,
get in there.
Stage one of their elections, were like, no, there was Russian meddling. We're going to do that again.
Yeah, that actually has taken an awful lot of spine, and that's what needs to happen. Either to a bully as an individual or a bully as a country. Yeah, once you stand up to them, they sit there and go, but you had an election, yes, and you tried fixing it, so we're rerunning it.
And that's it. But the thing about foreign interference is that the reason propaganda works is because people don't realize they're being subject to propaganda.
Yeah.
There's just that aspect. I read, I read the other day, the Twitter and Facebook ads that have been pushed out by Elon Musk were heavily targeted. They were going to one predominantly white group that was saying you're going to be overtaken by black and brown people. They were going to black and brown people that were saying the immigrants are going to take away your Social Security and your Medicare. So absolutely send all these different messages out. And you'll notice since the American elections, they've stopped talking about how bad the economy is. Suddenly the economy is okay.
Yeah.
The Haitians are no longer eating cats and dogs.
I was about to say the cats in Springfield are safe.
Yeah. They've gone, mate. It's just, you see, it was all this, and that's the blatant propaganda, but it's the insidious stuff that people don't realize is happening.
Yeah.
And it happens because the papers are owned by the oligarchs. The message that you hear is the only message that's allowed to go out.
Yeah.
And yes, alternative media like what we do now, what Kevin does in Independence Live, is an important part of that. But we can only dream of having the reach that somebody like Elon Musk has got, with sort of like 600 million users on his platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have we got, Russ? 400 and odd?
Yeah. Honestly, these people go, I've done my own research. No, you haven't. You've been spoon-fed what you're supposed to believe.
Yeah. So show me your published paper on that
one. I'm sorry, mate. I understand it. Of course I understand. I'm a psychologist, for God's sake. Of course I understand how people can be manipulated and made to believe things and believe it's their idea. Yeah. I understand it, but battling against that is really, really difficult.
It is, because as you mentioned, we don't have the resources to have the big banner headlines day after day.
As the quote goes, mate, it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them they've been fooled.
Yeah, because no one likes to admit that they've been fooled. No one, because we all have our little ego, and some of it's bigger than others. And you never want to admit that you've been fooled.
Yeah,
completely against the grain. That attempted coup in South Korea. I mean, I actually was doing United Nations Honor Guard over in South Korea when it was last under martial law. But
you were there, mate. You started it.
Yes, I started it, mate. Thank you. Yes, Blame Cliff for everything. That's probably a good way of doing it. And that was a weird couple of 2.5 months there, because there was a curfew on. You had to be back in barracks by midnight, and there anti-aircraft guns on all the tall buildings and stuff like that. It was a weird situation. So yeah, no idea what he thought he was going to get away with this one, because South Korea has come along such a long way since it got democracy back.
It's seen as a stable democracy there, mate.
Yeah.
Compared to North Korea, they're the sort of buffer zone. So the fact that their head of state seemed to lose the plot, and it was interesting how quickly it was shut down. I seen that there was MPs climbing the fences to get into Parliament to vote it down.
I mean,
because it's completely closed off.
Yeah, you don't do that unless you believe in your democratic process. And these people weren't agitators or troublemakers. These were people that were legally elected to represent the people, and they decided that this one guy was not going to take away that right.
And that's it. And maybe what we need is more people to be angry in this country.
Yeah.
Instead of just passively accepting it. But as you say, the budget that's just gone appears to be been a very well received budget in Scotland. It's certainly put Labour and the Tories on the back foot.
Yeah.
And if he can keep doing that, maybe we're in with a chance. But as we're saying, I think it was Starmer's already talking about legislating across the UK, completely riding roughshod over the devolution agreement. We'll see how that goes.
Westminster's never liked the devolved governments. They never like giving power away, whether it's a country leaving the Commonwealth, leaving the Empire, or back at home with the devolved powers.
And it's a shame, mate, because they were one of the driving forces behind devolution.
Yeah.
Donald Dewar was a great advocate for it.
Yeah, it was supposed to kill the independence campaign. That's what it was supposed to do, and he totally misjudged what would happen. The whole thing's set up so there'd never be one party with power. It'd have to always be coalition, and of course that got completely snookered with the SNP.
2007, wasn't it?
2007 was a minority government.
And then 2011 was like, we'll have a majority now, and they were like, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. We do need to get angry, and South Korea led the way there. We've seen two types of people turning against authoritarianism. Yeah, we've seen the Syrian one, which was an armed struggle, and you can totally understand why that's happening. And then we've seen the non-armed South Koreans. They just said, no, we don't care if you've got weapons. We're going to get into that Parliament building and we're going to continue with our democracy. Yeah, and that second one is what Scotland needs to do. We need to be angry that we are not getting our voice heard at any stage. And them turning around and saying, you've only got 6-7 MPs now, it's gone, that chance is gone. They can't use that, because they never used it when we had 54 MPs.
Yeah. It was never a thing. We said that at the time, mate. When we had 56 MPs down there, we said at the time, other than getting the sound bites when they got the sound bites, they made no substantial shift towards independence for Scotland. They tried. I'm not taking that away from them. But yeah, we're down to 6 now, and you say they'll discount us, but they'll already discount even if there was 59 down there. I don't know how many did we get. It's 57 now, isn't it? It's the max now, isn't it?
That's right. We lost 2.
Yeah. So you get 57 down there, mate. We would still be ignored by the Westminster. We're outgunned. That's a simple fact of it, and it's why we need to be kind of angry. And Scotland has always bucked the trend, thankfully. And we do have, obviously we have people on all across the political spectrum in Scotland. We have people on the left, people on the right. But by and large, we don't seem to go as far as, the Trumpian stuff that's gone in America. that aspect of just riding roughshod over everything, and people going and people clapping because he's on their side. You see an element of it. You know, your Tommy Robinsons. Oh, Merry Christmas to Tommy Robinson in prison, by the way.
Yes.
Enjoyment.
Yes.
But by and large, we tend not to buy into that, and it's good to see.
Yeah.
It seems to be more of a sort of middle north middle England type phenomenon.
Well, that's it. What we need to show is that the same attitude that we show when these, for example, the attempted coup d'état by Farage and his gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the last general election for the UK Parliament. Yeah, when the right wing rose and totally misjudged the situation. Yeah, because Scotland didn't rise with them. We are not those people. We're the people that turn out in the street to stop the vans as they lift people on dawn raids. As they did in Glasgow. I think twice in Glasgow they did that. That's the type of people we are. Well, we need to convert that conviction, that belief, into what we want from our Parliament. And what we want from our Parliament is for them to grow a set and turn around and say, right, we have been legally elected on this mandate and we're going to push for it.
And stop giving the extremists. There's extremists on both sides. Let's not cover that fact. But the extremists on one side are the ones that are getting the airtime. They're being platformed by the media. Their opinion's been sought. It's been normalised, and these are the people that we need to either refuse to engage with or tell them to shut up. And I'm aware we've only got a few minutes left, but the switch now, away from Twitter, and I'm not calling it X because it's always Twitter. In the aftermath of the election, when people have seen what Musk has done, it's a drop in the ocean that 14 million people have gone from Twitter to Blue Sky. But what people are not picking up is, more importantly, opinion makers have gone. So there's some media have gone, politicians have gone. And you can see the right wingers scratching at the outside, trying to be let in. But the beauty of it is that, unlike Twitter, they can be, if you block them, they're blocked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right, my friend. we are coming rapidly to the end of our last show of 2024.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have survived all the way through 2024 if it wasn't for the fine folk that tune in.
I refuse to believe that 2025 is a real year. It just sounds fake to me, like some crappy science fiction thing from the 1970s. So it sounds futuristic, but then I look around and think we've got the rise of fascism. We've got
trouble in the Middle East.
Yeah, trouble in the Middle East. It really is, mate. It's not 2025. It may as well be like 1935, the way we're going on.
What's going on here is exactly what was happening in 1925, buddy.
Yeah.
The Syria was under French control.
We never learn.
No, we don't. It's the same place names all over again. But that's doom and gloom. What we've got to look forward to in the new year, folks, is the rise of Scottish independence.
Yes.
We have to keep topping these polls, folks.
It's going to be, what was the time frame again? 500 something days, you said?
You're asking me to remember numbers, Russ.
That's
We've
right.
got 513 days, 10 hours and 30 minutes before the polls open.
So there you go. Like, literally, after Christmas, after New Year, it's going to be less than 500 days. Just that push. Just keep doing what you're doing. And even, and we're not asking people to be activists and get out and throw themselves under buses or glue themselves to paintings and the Tate Modern or whatever it is. Just be active, even if it's, we like to use the term chairborne warrior, right? If that's all you can do, you be a chairborne warrior.
Absolutely.
You get on there and you push it out. Absolutely. Our time is up once again, Cliff.
Yeah. So just like to say to everybody that's tuned in, over the past year. You have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Remember, we still have a bright future in Scotland because independence is most definitely right.
Absolutely. Everyone, please have a lovely Christmas and a smashing New Year, and we will see you all next year.
Yep.
Take care.
See you, folks.